Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
If you've seen our previous videos, you will know that we are currently on the Orkneys and we've just returned from 2 days on the Isle of Hoy and we are heading off to the Isle of Westray, so see how we got on.
The ferry across to Westray was probably one of the longer inter-island ferries that we've had to catch. It was an hour and a half, but when we got there it really felt like we were arriving somewhere extremely remote. The island was just so quiet. The ferry's quite small, it holds, I don't know, maybe about 15 cars, and there was a great big juggernaut on there, and apparently that ferries across every day taking stuff for the industry on the island, so you can't get many cars across there.
And we spent a beautiful 48 hours on the island, but probably one of the highlights for us both was a little boat trip across to Papa Westray, which was a smaller island on the edge of a really small island anyway.
Yeah, so Papa Westray, the ferry across there, is probably the smallest ferry and shortest ferry that we've taken. It only held 8 people. The big ferry that they normally take across is broken, so that normally holds 12 people, and it was just quite an amazing experience. On the island there is an old Neolithic dwelling that you can go in and explore, and very similar to Skara Brae, but it's 400 years older, and you can actually crawl inside it and you can have a really good look at it, and it's right by the sea. It was really scenic and it was really peaceful. We had it all to ourselves.
Yeah, and top historian tip, it is the oldest dwelling in Northern Europe, and the fact that you could just walk up up to it, walk into it, explore it, just sort of blew our minds a little bit. And then there was right next to it a little bit of social history that the locals had set up in terms of a farming museum, and it was really interesting to see how life had evolved on that tiny little island. There's still probably only just over 50 residents on Papa Westray, but it was an amazing day just to wander around in a car-free environment.
And it does have wonderful beaches as well. So we found 2 different beaches on our walk. We hiked all around the bottom half of the island, really white sand beaches again. And a quick fact that we learnt on the ferry on the way back, the island of Papa Westray is where the book The Outrun is based. It's being made into a film that should come out in September, so I'm going to try and buy the book to read it before the film comes out.
And any island trip would not be an island trip without Jackie frantically trying to find sites for where the puffins might be or might not be, because it's coming right to the edge of their season on the islands before they set off for winter and a life out on the sea.
Yeah, I did know that on Westray it's actually one of the best places on any of the Orkney Islands for you to actually see the puffins, and I did think that they would have gone, but we went to Castle O'Brien and there were thousands of them. It's almost like a little rock stack just out to sea, and it's like there was a little puffin party going on top of there. They were everywhere, probably too far away for us to take photos, so we just sat for half an hour and just watched them. It was fantastic. We did treat ourselves while we were on the island to staying on a campsite for the 2 nights, and we stayed at the only campsite on the island, which was actually in a really good location. It was based just outside of the main town of Pierwell, so we could walk into there to get the ferry the next day across to Papa Westray, and there was a really good fish and chip shop as well.
And it seemed to be the base of all tourists on the island, because that was pretty much the only place to stay apart from the one hotel in town. The campsite had sort of seemingly built a real community, so it had its own little community kitchen, and we spent a lot of time sitting down there drinking tea, chatting to the people that were also on the campsite. And it's lovely to sort of share stories like that, because quite often on the road you don't get the opportunity to meet people in that sort of environment. But it wouldn't be a campsite review unless we just had a look at Rate My Shower. Welcome to Shelman's Quoy campsite on the Isle of Westray. This is one of the 2 very spacious shower rooms on site. I really like the space-saving and ingenious sliding door arrangement. It's always nice to have plenty of bench space to put your stuff. Real quality and high volume hooks that could take an awful lot of gear. Something of a rarity, but a favourite for us, a duck board, which is a nice addition to keep your feet out of the wet. The classic electric shower that we now know and love on small Scottish campsites is ever present. And a lovely little domestic shelf in the shower. We really like the wet room style drainage, but the abrasive concrete flooring, the jury's out on that one. So overall, for Shelman's Quoy campsite, a strong performance on space and hot water. It's worth noting the loss of 1 mark for cleanliness was mainly due to the concrete flooring in the shower area, but there is a significant reduction of marks because there's only 2 showers for 11 plus campervan and camping pitches on site. Overall, a respectable 43 out of 50 for Shelman's Quoy campsite.
So after the quietness and remoteness of being on Westray and Papa Westray for a couple of days, we went back to Kirkwell. We wanted to get back in time for the Orkney County Show because we'd heard so much about it. For the whole 2 weeks we've been on the island, everyone said, oh, the ferries are changing, you've got to go to the county show. And it was lovely. It was such a nice experience. We've been to a couple in the Dales, and I grew up in Staffordshire where it was a big thing. And it was lovely. It's a proper agricultural show.
The highlight of the county show for me has to be the animals, and we had a great time just checking out the sheep, obviously, because we're from Yorkshire, and also my guilty pleasure of checking out the cows. Highlight on the sheep front?
Oh, definitely the black-nosed Swiss Valais sheep. There were 3 of them there. One of them was huge. He was only 1 year old being shown, and he was just so friendly and so gorgeous.
Unfortunately, on that Saturday, the weather seemed to break a little bit, so for the last couple of days, we've spent our time pretty much hunkering down and not really doing very much filming at all because it at times it's been a little bit wet, miserable, and it's been really, really blowy.
Yeah, we had a couple of park ups that we found on Park for Night app, and we've visited a few different cliff walks. We stayed at a really nice campsite out on Ronaldsay, Weems Organic Farm. It's actually a place that we had booked into on our original trip that we had to cancel 3 years ago, and it's really quirky. It's got a combination of yurts, shepherd's huts, different pods, lots of people camping. It's an organic farm. They've got a little shop there. It's got a really lovely community room again. So it was really wild and windy on the night that we were there, and the whole of the campsite had decamped into this little community room. There was families playing Monopoly. There's a kitchen area with a dining area. It had a really lovely feel to it.
And more importantly, it had got a camp cat, which helped me barbecue. It had got a cheeky chicken that decided it was coming into our van, and probably the highlight for Jackie.
It had 3 Highland cows, and they were absolutely gorgeous. And the person that owns the campsite says she brushes them every day, so they were very sleek as well. There was one, the female, who had escaped a few days previously, and she was in the field with the local farmers' cows, and they'd left her there sort of in the naughty field of shame, I think. So she was mooing to come back to her 2 friends, but they weren't having it.
But after 2 days of pretty inclement weather, we had probably the most unbelievable day yesterday. It was full of history. We had all the weathers, but it ended up really well. So have a look and see how we got on. Just to let you know, it's not all rainbows and unicorns on our travels. We are currently at the Weems Organic Farm campsite.
And the heavens have opened. You're all basking in 31 degrees of nice weather down in England and southern Scotland, but we have got the wildest storm with winds of up to 55 miles an hour. It's pretty good fun being out here, but I'm glad it's not been like this all the time we've been away.
Yeah, we were up in the middle of the night taking the cover off the windscreen because it was blowing all over the place, and then I think we lasted until about 8 o'clock this morning and then took the roof down because it was really rocking, and it's just got worse ever since. So who knows what we're going to get up to today. So after a full-on day of history yesterday, I think it's probably appropriate that we are sat here early morning chatting to you at the Broch of Gurness, which is the most unbelievable historic sort of dwelling. It's an Iron Age fort. It's really well preserved. We've had the opportunity to wander around at sunset throughout the evening and also come up here early morning, and it's probably one of our most memorable park ups that we've had.
For many reasons. The sunset last night is probably one of the best sunsets I think I have ever seen. The sky was just lit up with all sorts of shades of orange, and there was very thin wisps of clouds that just accentuated it. We managed to get some lovely photos, but even more impressive than that, one of our lovely subscribers had given us a heads up that there might be a showing of the Northern Lights. So I set my Aurora watch to give me an alarm if it went off. I must have slept through that. But one of the lovely neighbours that we'd been talking about the fact that the Aurora might come out gave us a quiet knock on the door at 2 in the morning, and they were literally dancing in the skies above us. We've got some fab photos of them taken just with an iPhone 11 Pro, and they're not as clear and crisp as some that you might see, but wow, the memories of just standing there with the van in the background and the Aurora dancing around us, that will definitely stay with us.
So yesterday started off with a little bit of modern history. So we came up from the south and we had the opportunity to drive over the Churchill barriers, which were some blocks that were put in place to protect Scapa Flow during the Second World War from submarine attack. Really quite impressive, and the fact that nature is suddenly starting to take over them. So you've got these man-made causeways, and yet nature was encroaching on it and producing the most beautiful beaches either side. The temporary blockhouses of the sunken ships are still there, protruding out of the water. Quite an eerie place, but obviously makes you realise how important this place was during the Second World War.
As we're coming to our last couple of days on the island, Richard was desperate to get back to the Ness of Brodgar, which is an archaeological dig that's actually happening at the moment.
It was a truly fascinating and once in a lifetime experience, because bizarrely they've been working on this site for about 16 years now, and in the next few days it's all going to be buried back in because they can't protect the rocks from the environment. So unlike this place, or unlike Skara Brae, which was made out of coastal rocks, the Ness of Brodgar dwelling was made out of stone that had been mined. So if it's left out in the elements, then it would just erode to nothing, which is really sad. But yeah, wow, what a place. And another epiphany moment of these people living in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, even for me, I did find it really, really interesting, and I'm glad we went, because Friday it closes forever and you won't be able to go and see it again. So we've come to our final day on Orkney. We get the ferry back to mainland Scotland tomorrow, so we're heading back to Stromness and having a little bit of an explore around that area today, and we will catch you later. So as you can see, we finally made it home after 4 weeks. We had the most amazing final day, starting off with a walk, and I think it was called Walk Mill Bay. It was a tidal bay, it was really pretty, and the purple heathers just set off the blues of the water, so it was really pretty for photography as well.
And then we headed, typical of the Orkneys, just there's history at every turn, and we went to Unston Burial Tomb. It takes a bit of selling, obviously, but it's amazing. It was 5,300 years old, and it was just a burial tomb that they'd unearthed on this farmland, and it's just immaculately preserved. And more like living history. You can crawl in it and go and have a wander around, which was incredible.
And then I guess the last part of our trip we spent at Stromness. We stayed at the Point of Ness campsite again. We've already been there once before. It's where the ferry was going from the next day. And we had a bit of a walk into Stromness, which is actually really pretty. Of all the towns that we visited on both Orkney and Shetland, I think it's one of the prettiest ones that we've come across.
And then trying to wring every last bit of our last few hours, we walked around the headland to try and find the naval batteries, which were still there, and you could still have a look around, but a lot of them were cordoned off, so that was a little bit of a disappointment. However, out of disappointment comes just amazing opportunities.
Yeah, we could see some blokes sort of pottering around with a huge drone. And Richard got chatting to him, and it turns out he works for Royal Mail, and quite a lot of the time, rather than sending the postman across on the ferry to some of the smaller islands like Hoy, they actually send the post using a drone, and he was test flying the drone for the day. It was quite incredible, and it fried our brains.
Yeah, probably for the first time in my life, I felt really old. Technology blew my mind.
Yeah, you hear all these stories about Amazon delivering parcels that way, but we've never actually seen it. It was incredible.
And then we just had to survive the night. And to be fair, the Point of Ness campsite, the name in the description, it's on a spit of land, and it just got battered by a storm. Yeah,
there was a really big storm that had threatened to come through, and we had the full force of the winds, probably up to about 55, 60 miles per hour in the gusts. The van was absolutely buffeting from side to side. We didn't put the roof up, we didn't put the front cover on because both of them were in danger of being blown away, I think. It was quite a stormy night, but it dissipated by early morning because I was really worried that our ferry would either be cancelled or I was just going to be throwing up everywhere because it was pretty violent. But by the time we got the ferry at 11 o'clock, it was like a mill pond again.
So that's it. That's brought our summer of adventures and our travels to an end. And we have had an absolute blast in the last 4 weeks on the Shetland and the Orkney Islands.
Yep, we've used the Wild Guide to Scotland to find so many different hidden places. Again, it's a book that we talk about a lot, but it has made a big difference to our trip. And we were going to take a little bit of a slower journey to get back home, but we did it all in one big hit of a nine and a half hour drive because there was a storm due the next day. So we've arrived back here in plenty of time to just have a few weeks pottering until our next adventure.
So if you are thinking about a trip up north, then please don't be put off. We didn't really know what to expect, but our 4 weeks on the islands has just absolutely surpassed our expectations. There is the wildlife, there is the history, there is the geography. It's just truly wild, and we've had a wonderful summer.
So if you are a regular viewer of our channel, you will have seen that over the last few months we've done 3 quite long road trips. We have had 3 weeks in Cornwall, Devon and Dorset. We have had 6 weeks out in Europe, and we've had the 4-week trip around the Northern Isles, Shetland and Orkney. And we thought that we get so many different questions from people on comments and through different emails. We thought we might do a bit of a question and answer video if there's lots of questions that come through. So if you think there's anything you'd like to know, if you stick it in the comments below. And I think Richard was thinking of doing a community post.
Yeah, and what we'll try and do, if there's enough interest, is put that video out next Sunday. So please, if you've got any questions about any of our adventures this summer, pop them in the comments below and we'll put it in a video. But that's it from us, so we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.